Hello everyone. In this lesson you're going to need a calculator. So to make the calculations as simple as possible, I want everyone to, if you have your own Inspire, you could absolutely use that. I'll show you the keys that you're going to need on there. But if you don't, please just go to a Desmos scientific calculator. Just like this one, all you have to do is type in Desmos, and if it comes up the Desmos scientific calculator, go ahead and select that one. But what we're looking for is we need the sine, cosine, and tangent. And it depends, even if you have your own handheld calculator, sometimes you have to type the numbers in and then hit the sine, tan, or sine, cosine, and tangent key. So this is just to make sure everyone is following the same input here for the calculations. What you want to make sure though is that this right here says degree DEG, and then if you hit the function tab, now we see this is what we call inverse trig functions. The sine to the negative first is referred to as the inverse sine, inverse cosine, inverse tangent. Sometimes on your phone, if you turn it sideways, some phone apps, calculator apps have this, others don't. And then again on your phone, you're getting into, do you type the number in first, or do you hit the trig function first? So in this case, you would just hit the trig function first. If you're using an Inspire calculator, I know this one has the cast that comes up, but your trig calculations, if you go to right underneath the control key here, you see an equal sign and then you see the trig, and sometimes mine likes to go a little bit crazy, as it is doing now. But if you notice, we've got the sine, cosine, tangent. Here's our inverse sine, inverse cosine, inverse tangent, and then like I said, it starts to go a little bit crazy. To know whether or not you're in degree mode, just look up here near the battery light. It should say DEG or RAD. RAD is for radians, so we want to change that. So to change, all you have to do is go to the home button, go to settings, go to document settings, and then right here for angle, you just hit the arrow key here, and then if it's in radians, make sure you hit degree, and then just go down to OK. And then we can go back to new. I want to save that. So what I want to show you is just how we're going to calculate these. So again, make sure calculators are in degree mode. Two things we're going to do today: calculate some trig values and then use inverse trig functions. This is how we find a missing angle a lot of the times. Now, the problem set, the worksheet I'm going to give you, just like problem set 1, I have the worksheet scanned in on here. We're going to go through some examples. I'm actually going to throw in some additional examples, and then you'll have to finish the worksheet just as you did with problem set 1. So it's not a long lesson here. As I mentioned before, we rely a lot on the calculator. All right, so for 1 through 16, there's 29 problems altogether. Notice it says problem set 2. For 1 through 16, it says find the trig value to 4 significant digits. So that means if there's a 0 in front of the decimal, that doesn't count as a significant digit. We'll just round to 4 decimal places. But if there is a non-zero number in front of the decimal, that counts as one of the digits here. We're just going to start with number 1. All you have to do is go to your calculator and type in sine of 22.6. So if you're in this mode, all you have to do is go back and hit main, but notice the sign in parentheses comes up 22.6, and then your answer shows up here. So we're going to round to 4 decimal places, so this is 0.3843. And we'll say it's approximately 0.3843 or 0.3843. All right, next let's go ahead down to number 15. Type in cosine of 180. For this one, I want to show it on the Inspired calculator. So go to Add Calculator. Hopefully this doesn't go crazy now. No, oh, it's still going crazy. All right, so we want cosine of 180. I don't know if it'll let me type it in. There we go. Cosine of 180. Hit enter, and we get a nice number here. Obviously no need to round, so it's just -1. Eventually what we're going to get into, once we learn something called the unit circle, are exact values, and then you'll be able to know cosine of 180 without using a calculator. So we'll say that this is -1. Let's go next to 16. Go ahead and type in sine of 180. For this, I'll go back to the Desmos calculator. So we want hit clear all for this. Sine of 180, and we see that we get a 0 here. Now, next are going to be some extra examples. All right, I want you to go ahead and type in tangent of 180 degrees and then tangent of 90 degrees. All right, so I'm going to go to the Desmos calculator, type in tangent of 180 degrees, and we're getting a 0 for that. But then tangent of 90 I'm going to show on the Inspire. So let's go tangent. Oh, now it finally calmed down. Let's go tangent of 90 degrees. And we see that it's undefined. So hopefully it was coming up that way. See what it shows this way. So if we do tangent of 90, it also says it's undefined. Now technically this calculator misuses the equal sign. We never want to say that a value is equal to undefined. Undefined is not a value. So we just want to say tangent of 90 is undefined. So if that ever comes up, make sure you write the word is and not the equal sign. So tangent of 180 is 0, tangent of 90 is undefined. So throughout a lot of these you will get decimal values, but some do come out to exact values here. Now just to give you a hint, 17 through 20, these are just like problems off of the last problem set. So this is where you'd want to draw your right triangle, put in a right angle, label theta, and then based off of the information given here, we start with sine theta is equal to 1/2. So remember this is opposite over hypotenuse. So you label it in as such. You find the third missing side if necessary, and then all you need to do is calculate the trig ratio. So when it says evaluate trig functions without using a calculator, it's the same thing now as finding the ratios for this. So if we're just asked to find cosine theta, we just want the ratio. All right, and the remaining problems here, 21 through 29, we want to find the missing angles. So we have to get rid of a trig function. So this is where we use the inverse. Anytime we solve an equation, we're using the inverse operation. So we refer to these as inverse trig functions, which, as I showed you on the calculator, look like this. So this is the inverse of sine. This is how we write the inverse of cosine, and then the inverse of tangent. So we're going to take a look at 21. Now, sine theta is equal to 0.24. I need to get theta by itself. So how do I get rid of the sine operation here? Is I'm going to take sine inverse of both sides. So I have sine inverse of sine theta is going to equal sine inverse, or inverse sine really, of 0.24. Now what's going to happen here is that these two operations are going to eliminate each other. They're inverses, so they're going to cancel out. And we're just left with theta is equal to the inverse sine of 0.24. Now technically I'm not going to keep writing this inverse sine out in front here. I'm just sort of going to undo it by moving it to the other side. So now we just want to go back to our calculator, clear this. So now we need to go to this symbol, so hit the function tab. So we want the inverse sine, go back to main, 0.24. Now what this is giving us is the angle measure. Theta measures an angle, so this is going to be in degrees. So about 13, we want to round to the nearest hundredth, I think it said. So 13.89 degrees here. So theta is equal to 13.89 degrees. On the graphing calculator, again, we'll go to the trig button. We want the inverse sine here, and then 0.24. Hit enter, also giving us 13.89 degrees. All right, let's take a look at, which one did I want to do next? Let's go to 23, do one with cosine. So what I'm going to start here with is to undo cosine. I'm just going to isolate the theta, and that's just going to become the inverse cosine of 0.8. And then now all we have to do is type that into our calculator. So clear this, go to function, go to inverse cosine, back to main, 0.8, and then we get 36.87 degrees. So theta is equal to 36.87 degrees. Likewise on the Inspire calculator. Now let's try one more. Let's go down to 29. This says this fraction here is 98 over 105, if that's hard to see. So theta is going to equal the inverse tangent of 98 over 105. And we're going to leave this as a fraction. Sometimes if you turn a fraction to a decimal, it can go on for quite a few decimal places here. So it's perfectly fine to leave this as a fraction. So just to show you here, we'll clear this out. We'll go to function inverse tangent. Let's go back to main. And then all we have to do is type in 98. As soon as you hit divided by, it's nice, it turns it into a fraction here. So 98 over 105, the inverse tangent of that is 43.03 degrees. Also showing you on calculator here. We'll go to inverse tangent of 98 divided by 105. All right, so if that happened, let's just go back up, hit enter, and then we'll hit control enter, and we're getting 43.03 degrees here. So that's really all there is to these problems. Knowing what I want you to be able to write out is this step right here is very important instead of just going straight to the final steps. I definitely want to see these two steps on your calculations. For the first 16, this is just a straightforward calculation on your calculator, so it's not going to require any work, but definitely show work for 17 through 20 as well. All right, so your assignment is just to finish problem set 2, the remaining of the 29 problems that we didn't go over just yet. So I will have you guys turn this in probably just by the end of the week, because I'm going to give you another lesson tomorrow. So I'll kind of hit you with 2 new lessons and then give you the rest of the week to work on the homework and submit by Friday. All right, as always, guys, take care. Let me know if you have any questions.